Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I sure hope you don't have this much trouble getting your students settled down. Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by David Basil.
Good morning, fellow Rotarians and guests. This morning, I'm going to share a poem. I was going to do just a few lines, but I couldn't really figure out where to cut it. This is something that I'm going to date myself, I think was hanging in every dorm room in America in the early and mid 1970s. No. It was written by Max Ehrman, who was an attorney in Terre Haute, Indiana. It was written in 1927. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence, as far as possible without surrender. Be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter. For always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection, neither be cynical about love. For in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive God to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham and drudgery and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy.
Thank you, David. To lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Mike Swain.
Thank you, Ron. I don't know, the poster on the back of my door just said beat Michigan. But, okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the four-way test of the things we say and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Mike. And now our president, Terry Bortnick.
Thank you. Good morning, Rotarians. Good morning, guests. Glad to see all your shining faces on this kind of yucky morning. I don't know about you, but I was voting to keep the snow. At least it was pretty and we could get outside in it. This is kind of, my dogs are bummed. Okay, so we have one more week of collecting socks and gloves for the homeless. I'm gonna do my little shopping excursion here shortly and take things down to the Haven Arrest. The gala committee meeting is planned for February 2nd at noon. That'll be the second. Marilyn's not here, but it's the second meeting, I believe. In the Hudson Community Foundation Boardroom. Anybody who's interested is encouraged to attend. And anybody who has any thoughts or ideas on any way to improve the whole gala, of course, is more than welcome. Okay, with that, I am going to pass the torch over to James, and he will make our introductions today.
Good morning, Rotarians. Before I make the introductions, just a little background on why we have our presentation that we're having this morning. Yes, Martin. Oh, we could do so. Okay, so I'll tell you what, we're going to start with service learning. Yeah, that's what I was planning on doing. But I will give the introduction for Marty Bach and Brittany Amier. And then we could do service learning. And then we'll talk about what the main topic. So Marty's been teaching at Hudson High School since 2001. He's one of the service learning program coordinators familiar with, and also teaches advanced placement United States history. He has a bachelor's in history from Northwestern University and a master's in education from Northwestern and national board certification, which has been renewed. And just a note on, my mom also went to Northwestern. She went there with Moses. It was that long. With Charlton Heston, yes. Same class. So actually, yeah, you thought I was joking on it. And then Brittany Amiet is, bio here, 1 second. Well, I have it first. In her 9th year of teaching at Hudson High School, has a bachelor's in history and secondary social studies education, as well as a master's degree in history with a focus on early modern and modern European history from the University of Akron. And while at Hudson High School, has taught U.S. history, world history, AP economics, AP government, ancient Western civilization, and contemporary issues. Also a sponsor of the Archaeology Club for the last 7 years, and most importantly, the Dungeons and Dragons Club for the last 5 years. Has also been working with service learning, as everyone's very familiar. So welcome up to the stage and our students of the month.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you. We're happy to be here. And just a little bit of service learning information before we introduce our students. So we do have RAK presentations. So if you did sign up for RAK presentations, please make sure that you're checking the sheet. We did have some schedule changes because of the snow days that we had, which kind of shifted some stuff around. I believe Marty has those. Oh, yes, we have those signups if you need to check those. And I will be today introducing Ellie Davis, who is one of our outstanding service learning students.
Hello, everyone. To speak a little bit about the RAK projects, I am presenting today from 3:30 to 4. I believe Miss Orr, who is on Zoom, is scheduled to be there. So I look forward to meeting you later. And I encourage everyone who can come to come, because I don't want to be left alone in a room with Mr. Cosman presenting. So please save me from that. So I am a member of our service learning program. I absolutely love it. My first semester, I was working in a kindergarten classroom at McDowell, and I had an absolutely wonderful time, you know, getting to bond with these kids and, you know, getting to be a really good role model in their lives was such an incredible opportunity. I really feel like I was able to make, you know, personal connections with each of them. And I learned a lot of patience for sure. Kindergartners are certainly, certainly not easy to work with, but they are all so kind at heart. And I truly do miss them. I was with Miss Fenimore, so we spent a lot of time outside. I got to join her for a Forest Friday where they spend their entire Friday afternoons just outside in the McDowell Arboretum, just, you know, exploring nature, you know, learning about nature, learning through nature. And it was really a wonderful experience. And then this semester, drastic 180 to be an intern at the Summit County Prosecutor's Office. It is an amazing opportunity to be able to do that, especially as a high school student. There are other interns there, but they are all in college. So I feel kind of cool, you know, being like, oh, you know, I'm actually in high school. And it makes me feel pretty good about myself. So there's that. But I am very interested in getting into law and, you know, becoming a lawyer or an attorney. So getting this opportunity to learn about it now and sort of see how our court system works, be able to sit in on some really cool trials has been a really incredible opportunity. And I would honestly say that, you know, these service opportunities are my favorite part about service learning. It's not, you know, we're not just in the classroom. We're not, you know, learning things that aren't necessarily going to, you know, prepare us for the future. You know, we're going out, we're getting this experience, we're building up a resume. And even when we are in class, we're learning things that are extremely helpful. Like we're learning how to, you know, file taxes and, you know, give big presentations and learn how to be good public speakers. So overall, it's really an incredible program. I absolutely love it. Great teachers, and I'm super happy to be able to talk about it here. So, oh, after high school, thank you. I'm not sure exactly which college I'm going to yet. I've yet to hear from a few, but right now OSU and Penn State are some of my top choices. Like I said, I really want to study history and pre-law. That's been something I've always been interested. I really want to help, you know, make change in whatever way that I can. So as of now, that's the plan, but subject to change once I get to college, because if I hate it, I'm not opposed to changing it because I don't want to do something that I hate. So there we go.
All right, good morning, Rotarians. So lovely to see you this morning. Before I introduce our next speaker, so though we're still planning a lot for the class of 2024, they got a field trip coming up, some end of the year activities. We're ready, always looking ahead to the future. So we're ready interviewing the class of 2025. So we're in that season, all right, to ready having our juniors. We had a number of interviews meeting the juniors yesterday and more to come. So we're ready getting set for next year's class. So I'd like to introduce our second student speaker of the day, and that is Lexi Korf.
I do. Good morning, Rotarians. Thank you for having us here so graciously. I see my dad has already pulled out his phone right there. So hi, Dad. Yeah, I'm honestly not sure how I'm supposed to follow Ellie after the great little speech that she gave about service learning. But similarly to Ellie, I'm also in early childhood education right now. I am at a Head Start in Ravenna. For those who don't know, Head Start is a organization that it creates early childhood learning centers for children underneath the poverty line. So kids ages 0 through 5 can go to preschool and get an education when they can't afford it before they actually enter into kindergarten. So that has been such a great experience for me. I do have experience with younger kids, but it definitely is a challenge. Head Starts are not for the weak of heart. Obviously, patience is a big virtue that is very important when going into early childhood education. I just loved my experience there. And last semester, I was also at an elementary school in Nordonia called Ledgeview Elementary, and I was a teaching assistant in that classroom. And that was honestly just such a great experience for me. I absolutely loved it in that classroom. I absolutely adored the kids, and I had such a great relationship with the teacher there. It was honestly like my favorite part of the year. I loved it. I still communicate with that teacher, and going in service learning has given me so many opportunities to just like be a good community servant and expand outside of like the bubble that is Hudson and staying inside the community. I have just like loved every single aspect of it. It's like Ellie said, it's a great way to like build communication skills, a great way to build your resume. Um, yeah, I've just loved every single part of it, and I'm so excited to see what it brings for the rest of the year. Beyond that, I plan to also go to college, but I haven't selected what college I plan to attend. I'm thinking about Ohio State or also Penn State, and I plan to major in either environmental studies or environmental design and sustainability. So yeah, those are my plans beyond college, and thank you guys so much for having us.
Aren't they impressive? Really, our future is very well assured. So anyway, just to give a little background, and I don't, is Jim Ahern here today? He actually initiated this. Oh, he's not. Oh, it's too bad. Hopefully he could pick it up on the YouTube. So on a local radio station, they interviewed someone who I guess is a radio personality who created a book that was historical documents, important documents in U.S. history, and was on a tour to, or I guess he was being interviewed to promote his book. And so I had happened to hear the interview as well as Jim had heard it as well on the way in. And he talked about that there was a study that showed that kids don't know, about the Constitution, about Federalist Papers, and about historical documents. And that was the reason he wrote this book, and also that history was being taught with certain bias, and he wanted to correct that. Now, he didn't cite what the survey was, or when it took place, or where, how many people were interviewed, or anything about it. So, interesting enough, it was on the news station. As a good reporter, you would ask, well, so where was the survey done? What does it represent? But no, the interviewer said, "Oh, that's terrible, and it's great that you are going to correct this." And I'm pretty sure, I think it was the interviews by phone, so he probably has no concept of what's being taught in Hudson schools for sure, or even locally. I'm not even sure if he's really researched anywhere based on that conversation. But Jim did bring up, we talked later, and it was really good. He said, so it kind of raised the question, what do we teach in U.S. history and government, and how is it taught? And so, which is a great question. And so I talked to our administration and to Marty and Brittany, and they generously offered to come and speak about what their curricula is and how it's taught, and then answer questions. And one thing I just want to add that at the beginning of each year, they have an open house. And as board members, we would attend, and the teachers would talk about what the upcoming curriculum was. And it's really impressive. I mean, they work very, very hard and revise it each year. And you could, it's not just off the cuff what they teach. It is very detailed. It has to hit certain standards, that are required by the state and so forth. But also they want to make sure that they not only are teaching facts of history or the subject, but how to think, how to evaluate, and that sort of thing. So, it's really impressive, all the work that all our faculty give in terms of the courses they teach. And if you ever get a chance to attend an open house, I highly recommend it. In fact, you'll probably, like me, say, boy, can I go back and take these courses? Because it's really interesting. So anyway, with that background, and one other thing is, I picked up this book. Marty said he's read it and it's been interpreted, but it's called Lies My Teacher Told Me: Everything Your American History Textbook Got Wrong. And it's been out. So I think hopefully when this fellow wrote it, he went through all the American history textbooks, and it was interesting how different they had different versions of history, and these were all but then also how some of the things had been, the new evidence or new things, and shown that they didn't really revise it. Some did an excellent job of that. I'm sure the textbooks now are, hopefully much better. Oh, yeah, okay. There we go. So, well, today, as soon as you write anything, it's out of date, right? But anyway, with all that, here's Marty and Brittany.
Again, thanks for having us today. Although, as Mr. Field said, this started specifically with a question about the founding documents, U.S. history and government. We decided to expand it a little bit beyond that, just in terms of the social studies department as a whole and what we do at Hudson High School. So, and also thanks to Noah Price back there running the slideshow, one of our wonderful seniors. So thanks, Noah. Next slide, Noah. Cool, and you can put the whole thing up. So that's fine. All right. This is an overview of the courses that are offered at Hudson High School. So bear with me for a moment. So the Ohio Department of Education requires 1 year of U.S. history. We target that at the freshman level. So the freshmen have an option to take college prep U.S. history, honors level, or AP level at freshman year. Then the OD mandates 1 year of world history. We lock that into the sophomore year. So sophomores then take college prep world history, honors world history, or they take AP European history. Then completed generally for us in junior year, the ODE mandates 1 semester of government. So jumping down a little bit, you might see that there's government, college prep level, it's 1 semester, or many of our juniors take AP government instead, which is a full semester course. In terms of, just go past the banner, the rest of these courses in here are all electives, which can be taken anywhere from sophomore to senior year. So we have U.S. military history, ancient Western civs, which Ms. Ami is going to talk about quite a bit. Sociology, AP psychology is our most popular AP course in the social studies department. AP econ, both micro and macro level. Criminology, that deals with looking at issues of crime and law enforcement, things like that in the United States. Common humanity is a course that explores issues of race, gender, and class, and ethnicity. Then we have our senior electives, service learning, which you are very familiar with, and New Dimensions, which are both courses you have to apply and interview for. New Dimensions is an interdisciplinary course, English and social studies, just like service learning. It focuses on philosophy, anthropology, psychology. They do really in-depth reading of books and articles, heavy discussion-oriented, writing-oriented, and they also then do a cultural trip to New York City in the spring. So that's an overview of what we have. Next slide, Noah. All right. So what I want to go into depth to show you in terms of what we teach or how we teach, I want to go into world history. So sophomore year for us, world history. This is from the ODE content standards, right, from Columbus for world history. So you can see up here, they have a time period that they call the Age of Revolutions, right, 1750 to 1914. Now, pulled out down below a couple content statements that specifically, thank you, that relate to this era. And if you can see the content standards, it says the American and French revolutions influenced Latin American revolutions for independence, industrialization, and social, political, and economic effects in Western Europe and the world. Very good. That's from Columbus. As I say, you got to teach that. You got to get that across. Next slide, Noah. Thank you. All right. Now, in terms of pulling that down to the French Revolution itself, let's look at just the French Revolution. See, that was a long time period, 1750 to 1914. So let's just look at the French Revolution. This is what Columbus says you have to teach. Enlightenment ideas caused the French Revolution. The French Revolution influenced Latin American revolutions. That's mandated Columbus. Every Ohio school children must know that. I'm now going to open up to you, as we teachers like to do. So Rotarians, because this is about, knowing history. I'm sure you know history, because you would have done well in that survey. Do you notice any gaps in regards to French Revolutionary era that you think maybe our young people over here should know? Okay, so maybe the later 1844 revolutions that came right in this, and maybe Columbus should know about that those things happen. Anything else? Okay, all right. There's the Sun King, I am the state. How that builds to this. Absolutism. Very good. Yeah. Yep. Do we recently have, and it pains me, I had such high hopes. Did we recently have a major blockbuster film about something that isn't mentioned in there? Yeah. Is there anything about Napoleon? The Napoleonic Wars? Is there anything about Marat in terms of propaganda, newspapers? Is there anything about Jacques-Louis David in terms of propaganda, artistry, right, and things like that? Is there anything about Robespierre and Jacobins and the Reign of Terror and how radicals can seize control of a power vacuum? Is there anything, the fact that most historians say the turning point of modern European history is the French Revolution, and basically the patterns of the French revolutions set up later on, not just Latin American revolutions, but the communist Red Revolution in Russia, right after World War I, and even going up to the Iranians in 1979, that's a pattern that's then created in terms of power vacuum, right, tumult, radical seize control of the moment, right, like that. Yes, exactly. There's a whole multitude. We, as the social studies department, when we saw this, right, years ago, we're doing world history, we said, wow, we could teach that in one day. Right? And Columbus would be fine. It's like, oh, we covered what you wanted. It takes about one day because we do an enlightenment unit before it. And we're going to say, yeah, remember everything in that unit? Yeah, that's going to cause this. And by the way, here's Simon Bolivar. Here's Jose de San Martin. Here's the Latin American revolutions. And yeah, they kind of like the French Revolution. All right, moving on. So here's my point. Next slide, Noah. There you go. Thank you. We as a social studies department, I am so proud of my colleagues. My colleagues are superb. I'll put them against anything. I think we have an all-star team, right, in the social studies department. We look at things that Columbus gives us as a starting point, and then we go gap, fill it in, gap, fill it in, gap, fill it in. And we have found things 10 years prior to Columbus waking up and saying, oh, we missed this. And we say, oh, we've been teaching that for a decade because we just don't do just what you say to do. We say, nah, this is missing. We need to add this in. So to give you an example, US history, the 8th grade curriculum is to take them through Reconstruction. All right, then the 9th grade curriculum starts in industrialization, right? Rockefeller, Carnegie, all of that, right? We identified it as a department years ago, one, that we should reteach Reconstruction. Not that the 8th grade doesn't do it well, but the Civil War is so monumental and the 8th graders get all involved in the Civil War that basically when that's done, you have Reconstruction and that's late May, early June, and the kids are like, already out the door, and they don't really get that in detail, all right? Appomattox, and that's it. So we said, regardless, Reconstruction is so important to various things, especially race relations, United States moving forward. We should reteach Reconstruction, make sure that they get it. So we did that regardless of whether you say we don't have to. Then we identified a long time ago when we saw this, we said, wait, we pick up an industry. There's nothing about the West. There's nothing about Wounded Knee. There's nothing about Little Bighorn. There's nothing about the Dawes Act. There's nothing about the closing of the frontier. The entire Western Plains Indians Wars is gone because ODE missed it. Reconstruction, industry. Yeah, well, there's this other thing going on, and they never had it until 2 years ago. They actually put out an update in italics. It was hilarious and said, you need to add this in. And we in the Solicitor's Department laughed and said, yeah, we figured that out like 8 years ago. We've been teaching that forever, regardless of them telling us this. Then, in terms of both courses, US history and world history, Lexi, Ellie, what year were you born? 2006. They were not alive for 9/11. Osama bin Laden is history to them. We decided years ago, don't care. We need to get to our last units in both US history and world history are called globalization and terrorism. Not mandated by the ODE, nothing in there. We said we have to get to this because obviously it's what they're dealing with today, the new global economy, right? Terrorism, the new multipolar world. We added that in and said we have to get to that, right? In world history, which is even more hilarious. So we do a thorough coverage of the French Revolution and Napoleon. We spent about a month on the French Revolution and Napoleon. Then this was great. Mr. McGowan and I were sitting in the high school, this is probably 15, 20 years ago, looking at the world history standards. And we said, this is all missing. And I remember our curriculum director at the time said, well, if you're going to write this in, ODE doesn't mandate it, put in parentheses, everything has to be in some kind of logbook and some 3-ring binder on how we do it. And put in parentheses Hudson, meaning this is a Hudson standard that we added, that all Hudson teachers have to teach. We said India and Pakistan. Maybe they should know who Gandhi was. Maybe they should know about the division of the Indian subcontinent and that and Muslim, Hindu division. No, ODE doesn't care. There's nothing in there about that. Israel and Palestine, not in there. So we put in there Hudson Standard. We're teaching the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the birth of Israel and all that happened. Not in there. All right. South Africa and apartheid. Not in there. So we said we have to do this. And by the way, I missed one. Bad for me. Mao and communist China. Nothing about the Chinese Revolution. Nothing. So we added these, right? So our Hudson students, they're getting that. Columbus is still, right? And then for contemporary issues class for seniors, right? What Ms. Ami and I have figured out with our senior elective is we regularly evaluate. That's what we say is contemporary issues isn't just a political class, isn't just what's in the news today. Let's talk about what's in the newspaper today. It's what is important to them as soon to be legal adults, 18-year-olds going out in the great wide world. So we added consumer finance years ago because we had Hudson students who said, you heard Nellie, I graduated Hudson High School, but no one ever taught me how to do taxes or how to manage a credit card or how to properly shop for a car, how to get an auto loan, how to rent an apartment. Nobody ever taught that. If you noticed about 2 years ago, it's starting with this current freshman class of 2027. Columbus finally caught up and said, there's a mandated consumer finance requirement. We've been teaching it for years, okay? And then we have also added the last number of years, relationships. With the growth of technology, what that's added on in terms of divisions, and that we've added a relationship unit for both friendship and romantic relationship, because we see that's something they need, something I want to talk about. So that's what I meant in terms of we respond to things proactively in our department. Noah, next slide. This is my last slide, and I turn it over to Ms. Amier. These are courses, full courses that were added by the Social Studies Department in response to student interest, not because we thought, oh, this would be great, but student interest. You saw a lot of our things were focused on Western Civs. Mr. McGowan years ago added Eastern Civs as an elective that focuses on Japan and China and the Middle East and India, right, and all that to specifically address that. Ancient Civs, Ms. Ami is going to talk quite a bit about that. U.S. military history. In terms of AP and that, they do not care about military history. They don't. In terms of a war, it's causes of the war, government action during the war, effect of the war. They don't care about any of the military aspects. A lot of our students, yeah, mostly boys, right? But many ladies as well said, I want this, I want this. So Mr. Brink added U.S. military history as a semester elective. Criminology, we have so many students, true crime, evidence, all this kind of stuff, law, want to go into law. That was added as an elective for the students. And then race in America, which became common humanity to address those issues of gender and class and race, right? That we address in the other courses, but not as in depth, focused directly on them. We're all added. So let me turn it over to Brittany.
Thanks, Noah. So one of the classes that I was lucky enough to write, and I've been teaching it for 5 years now, was ancient Western civilizations. And a lot of this comes down to the fact that I was really interested in that when I was in college and then beyond. But I started to look at, when I started teaching AP Gov, I noticed that my kids were like missing some of the like important references to things like Greece and Rome. And so I'd have to go back and explain those. And then when we started looking at new classes that we could teach, I was able to suggest ancient Western. And so the only standards, just to kind of tie it back into standards, the only standards that reference ancient civilizations are going to be in the 7th grade curriculum. And 4 of the 21 standards in the 7th grade curriculum reference only Greece and Rome, with no concept of how the civilizations around them actually formed their creation and structure and all of those things. So you can see them here. I do specifically want to point out number 17, which is the content standards. This is one of the things that I have to, or not have to, sorry, that I talk about a lot. It mentions Greek democracy. There is no such thing as Greek democracy in the ancient world. There were about 52 states throughout the entirety of Greek history that were democratic. And there were about 1,000 city-states. And the majority of them were not democratic. They were some type of theocracy, monarchy, something along those lines. And so I wanted to kind of like fill that in. And no, if you could go to the next slide. And so, sorry, I like transitions. I was thinking about a clicker. And so the class that I wrote was Ancient Western Civilizations. Now, this is only a semester class, and so there is a limited amount of time that I have to cover this stuff. It's about, so it goes from about 3100 BCE to the fall of the Roman Empire in the 450s CE. If I get to it, I love to talk about the Vikings, but unfortunately, as Ellie can tell you because she took my class, it rarely happens. But the main civilizations that we cover are Egypt, which I realize is Northern Africa, but they have a huge impact on the rest of the Western world, including things like medicine, philosophies. You see the worship of the goddess Isis in the center of the city of Rome. And so you really need to kind of like explain that connection. Egypt is going to be the breadbasket for the city of Rome itself. We also cover, obviously, Greece. That fits in with the 7th grade curriculum, but I tend to go in more in depth than what they got in 7th grade. We talk about Phoenicia and the Carthaginians because we don't get Rome without Phoenicia and the Carthaginians. If you don't have that like long series of 3 Punic wars, Rome does not really rise to power. Carthage actually does, which is a whole nother conversation to have. We talk about the Celts. The Celts are one of these kind of like mystery cultures that the kids are kind of like always like, oh, I know what Celtic women is, which is awesome. But we talk about it from, yeah, exactly. We talk about it from their perspective. So I cover the Hallstatt and the Latene cultures, which are the 2 main competing cultures that we have from the Celts. And then we also talk about Rome. So like I said, the reason I did this is it kind of fills some of these gaps in their knowledge, but it also helps to influence some of the other classes they're taking. So it explains this kind of the other, the influence of these cultures. It explains their impact on Greece and Rome, which the kids kind of know or know a little bit about. But it also gives them like an understanding of the cultures, and it helps inform stuff that they've learned in the past or stuff that they might learn in the future. So Marty referenced Enlightenment ideals in the French Revolution. Those come from this, right? Like we get Enlightenment ideals because it's the re-understanding of those ancient ideals that people were looking at that informs the thinkers of the time. It also does help my students understand historical documents. I know a lot of this is talking about, or kind of the impetus for this was talking about the founding documents. Madison, Hamilton, they all were very well versed in this ancient history. You can read, like my kids will have to read, we have to read parts of the Federalist, they have to read the Federalist Papers. And there are references all over the Federalist Papers to the Ionian Greeks, which helps starts the Persian Wars. There are references to Spartans' dual kingship and like how that doesn't work. Yeah, I'm thinking specifically about Federalist 70, where they talk about how you need to have like a singular executive. And then he references, well, Sparta did it. And that's about the only time it worked. No, if you could go to the next slide. And so this kind of takes me into government. So if we're looking at our government numbers, so Ancient Western obviously is my, it's an elective class. I got to write it. It's awesome. I love that class so much. But one of the other classes I teach is AP Government. And so talking about, Marty mentioned this, but government is a required 11th grade course. And the topics according to ODE are civic involvement, participation and skills, basic principles of the US Constitution, structure and function, role of the people, public policy, and the government and the economy. Now, we at Hudson are lucky enough to have a very motivated student body. We do have about 200 to 230 students on average who take our AP Gov class. This is a much longer class. It's a year-long class as opposed to our regular class, which is a semester. And it's taught by 3 teachers for a total of 10 classes. I have 2 of them. Jeremy Tawney has 5, and then Lee Rand has 3. And we have a lot more time in the year. It's easier for us to kind of like dig into content, and the AP standards are more specific than the ODE standards. And so we do have to obviously go by the AP standards because our kids take a test at the end of the year. We also do have a semester government class, which averages about 120 to 140 students. It's 2 teachers for a total of 3 classes. And there are some difficulties that that the semester's classes faces because where we have an AP test at the end of the year, they have 2 air tests that they have to prepare for. The first air test they take in December. This is like the state mandated test that our students have to take. They take that in December, so they have, a full semester to prepare for the air test. Second semester of Gov, though, they have a significantly shortened time because they have to take the air test in April. So instead of having, August to December to prepare, our teachers have January to April to prepare, and it's the middle of April. So really, once you take out time for review, things like snow days, you're looking at 3 months to prepare. And so you're taking this curriculum and pushing it down and cramming it down into this much smaller package. And we still, our Gov teachers get it done. And as an AP Gov teacher, sometimes I don't know how. So if you could go to the next slide. So just to give you an idea of documents that we actually do cover in government, and this is both AP and regular. I was speaking with the college prep Gov teachers the other day, so I wanted to make sure that I got it. But founding documents that are covered, they do talk about and read the Declaration of Independence. They talk about the Articles of Confederation and they read sections from it. They don't read the full thing. The Constitution and later amendments. They also do both the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist papers as well. Like I said, all AP students are required to read part or all, depending on the requirements of. I have the documents listed on the next slide. Don't go yet. No, though. And then the semester government students are asked to read similar documents by their teachers. This is something that their teachers have decided that they need to be reading these documents. And so I know they read all of 10, they read sections of 51 and Brutus 1. And you two, I know, took AP Gov, so these will sound at least relatively familiar. And so, like I said, this is they do have some difficulties with this class. It is the singular semester, and there's air testing, which I mentioned before. So, I'm so sorry. Air testing is the kind of state capstone test that the students have to take in order to essentially pass. That's a good question. Sorry. Sometimes I get caught up in the lingo and I forget. No, if you could go to the next slide. And so if we're talking about this from AP Government, which obviously I teach, but my kids are required to read these documents front to back. So obviously we do have the Declaration. That's a pretty standard one. They read all of the Articles of Confederation and have to break it down, including problems that you would see with the Articles of Confederation. Once we get to the Constitution, I make them compare the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution so they can see the holdover. So things that they took from the Articles and compare them to how they fit in the Constitution. And then we do the arguments for the ratification of the Constitution. So they read Brutus I, which is very famously like the first anti-federalist paper. And then College Board asks that we spend a bit more time focused on the Federalist Papers. And so we've got our kids read Federalist 10, 51, 70, and 78, which Federalist 10 is about factions, so it's the people. Federalist 51 is separation of powers and checks and balances. Federalist 70 is about the energetic executive, so the executive branch. And then Federalist 78 is going to be about the Supreme Court. And then they also have to read, to kind of round out these required documents, they also have to read letters from a Birmingham jail. And this does not necessarily mean that these are the only documents that we cover. We throw other ones in there from time to time. I know I've had kids read sections from Federalist 48. We've seen 54. It's varied based on kind of what we need to cover in the year. And all of this, according to College Board, is designed to get them to write an argumentative essay on their AP test. So the students would have to know these documents well enough to make the argument or to make an argument using them as evidence. That's the ultimate kind of goal of College Board, which my goal is, and I know that my PLC, my learning partners goals are to make sure that they know them well enough to be able to apply them to each of these other documents and see how things interact and kind of like get that deeper understanding. And so the next kind of piece, if Noah, you can go to the next slide. The way that we measure these tests and outcomes of these tests is going to be through some type of standardized test at either the end of the semester or the end of the year. And these are the ODE. This is our standardized test data for Hudson High School. And you can see it is color coded, which I know can be a little bit difficult to read on the screen. But this darkest color right here is significant evidence that we've exceeded student growth by a large magnitude. And you can see American history over there on the right meets that standard. So our students excel in American history when it comes to air testing, which that testing that the students take, that state kind of capstone testing they take. And then American government, which again, keep in mind is that semester class. Our students show significant evidence that the school has exceeded student growth expectations, which is that far one on the right-hand side. So there is Marty said that he would put our department against anyone. I fully agree with that. We work with some of the most talented teachers that I've ever had the pleasure of knowing, let alone working with. And then our next slide is going to be honor roll criteria. So this is our AP kind of honor roll, and Hudson is platinum, which is a very, very small percentage. Do you remember the number? How many schools get platinum? Yeah, I don't either. Yeah, we have the highest amount of students taking any AP courses this year. It's a smaller population of students, but they're actually taking more AP classes than we've ever seen at any point. So we have a lot of kids who are very engaged with this curriculum, very engaged with their teachers. And Hudson, because of the work that the students and the teachers put in, we are ranked platinum, which is like top percent of schools in the country when it comes to taking AP classes. And so these are criteria. So this is like culture, credit, optimism, like how well do you prepare them? And Hudson, you can see ranks very, very well. And so we have achieved this kind of platinum criteria. So if we want to, or do we want to invite Ellie and Lexi back up really quickly? Both of them have taken quite a few social studies classes, which is why we've asked them not only to come talk to you guys from a service learning perspective, but also to just give you their perspective on the history classes. You want to go first?
So to speak a little bit more about our history department from a student perspective, seriously, every single one of our history teachers is phenomenal. I have taken, I don't even know how many history classes. I took at least 3 last year. I'm taking 3 this year. I took Ancient Western Civilizations last year with Ms. Amier. It was a great class. I loved it. I've taken criminology, sociology, AP psychology, AP government, you name it. I've taken so many. I love history. And a big reason is because of how amazing our history department is. I've never been afraid to take a history class because I thought I was going to get a bad teacher, because there are no bad teachers. Everyone, shines in whatever subject they are teaching. I know that I'm going to be receiving, amazing curriculum. I'm going to be receiving awesome teaching. I'm going to be, exceeding the standards, learning everything, and I'm going to have fun doing it because every teacher is amazing and it's a lot of fun.
All right. Second to what Ellie said, I've also taken many history classes at the high school. I'm actually currently doing a peer collaborator for AP government. And for those who don't know, peer collaborator is a thing that Hudson offers. I think it's specifically Hudson offers. It's like a program that students can sign up for a class that they've already taken that they feel they're like pretty confident and have done well in, and they can sit in. It's similar to student teaching, but not necessarily. You kind of sit in and listen to the class and help with discussions and help the teacher and help student questions and all sorts of things like that. So I'm doing that for AP government and politics right now. Yeah, I've also taken all sorts of history classes at the high school. I've taken criminology, AP European history. I took AP government, as I just mentioned. And right now we're taking contemporary issues because Ellie and I are both in service learning. So yeah, I mean, the entire history department, as Ellie said, is just absolutely top tier. They're just the nicest people, some of the most down to earth teachers I've ever met, and some of the most brilliant minds. Like, even though they are very smart and very, very great educators, they're also just so easy to talk to, and never people that I would shy away from asking questions, or just if you ever have a problem, like anyone in the history department is just so friendly. And I think everyone can attest to that, how nice they are and how down to earth they are and nice they are, like I just said. But yeah, I really think Hudson has such an amazing history department, and I truly can't express enough how much I have enjoyed it, my time in high school, Hudson. So yeah.
Cool. Noah, you can go to the last slide. So before we want to open up, if you have any questions for us, just one last thing I wanted to capstone with, because this came back to the idea that, well, this person on the radio said many of the students don't know founding documents. So my son is in biology class right now. He has a test this week on cell division. He asked me about it. I told him, I said, oh yeah, mitosis, meiosis. Now, does that mean my freshman year that Doc Mathias, who was a great teacher, did not teach me all the steps of cell division? No, I know he did, right? But I'm a history teacher. I haven't done molecular biology since freshman year. So I know I can remember some basics, but I just don't work in it. So if you're going with someone with a gotcha question in terms of, do you remember the three authors of the Federalist Papers are? And you were 55 years old? And you're a molecular biologist, it doesn't mean you never were taught that, or you couldn't at least look it up and be able to, oh, no, it's triggering memories. Now I know what kind of it's about. So you got to keep in mind when you have those gotcha questions, where are people at in their life? What is their background? What are they doing? That's the important thing. So any questions?
No, so I'm just going to sort of play on that. So one of the contentions of this author was that they don't teach the Federalist Papers as they did when we were young. So I'm trying to remember learning so how many people here learned that sort of depth about the Federalist Papers when they were in high school? So we have in high school that. So we have maybe one or two. What's that? Oh, yeah. So Joe would have studied it. And as you said, even knowing who the authors are. So anyone mentioned their favorite Federalist paper? Except for David Basil, I know he probably knows them all. But anyway, so my point being that people will make statements, but as you could see, just amazing depth. And from my recollection, and I took AP US history in high school, and we had less history to learn, a lot less. But this is way more depth than we had. So I feel very confident that they're doing a good job. So, okay.
Thanks. Thank you, guys. That was awesome. I fear for what is going to happen now that the governor's office is pulling the strings.
Mhm.
It does not bode well for edicts.
Mhm.
That aside, I do have a question. Actually, I have two. It looks like the Western Hemisphere is not involved,
Mhm.
which is kind of dicey given what we've learned about the history of the Inca and the Aztec cultures and how those have cascaded throughout this, not only this hemisphere, but where that stuff came from as it distributed. So I was curious about that omission, never mind the time that you invested there. And the other thing that I'm aware of, particularly given the interest in environmental science and the realities that are facing us, environmental history didn't start with the 60s. And so that increasingly becomes crucial as you look at the rest of history and the evolving issues with governance. So I was curious whether there was any emerging interest in that as a context for understanding why it's important to pay attention when they start dismantling protections for life on the planet.
What I can say in terms of Western Hemisphere and about Central and South America, in AP US history, we start period 1 is called Ancient Indians. So we deal with the Mayans and the Aztecs heavily. And in terms of it does overlap with environmental use, because one of the main things we do with Ancient Indians is the geography and then the land use. And the way I started with is I will ask them, I said, describe an Indian. And a lot of them are quiet, they're just silent today. But if anybody says up, they say feather headdress, teepee, right, loincloth. And the point is that that's the Plains Indians. And we then talk about why does that last? Because they were the last tribes to be conquered. They are the ones that last in the 50s, you know, the Virginian, the Rifleman, the John Wayne films. I said, we go back and we then showed the diversity of Indians. Tenochtitlan is the biggest city on the planet upon discovery. Some of them know that in the back of their head. They may have had it in 8th grade because 8th grade would cover this. And they're like, oh yeah, but that dominant narrative of what an Indian is because of our culture, right, lasts with just one tribe or one series of tribes. So we do address that. There certainly could be a lot more in terms of South America. A lot of, I think, in terms of what we address is in regards to some of the revolution movements, slavery, the Sugar Islands and the Caribbean in regards to slavery. We do a lot with that. In terms of environmental, I can tell you in the antebellum era, there's this political cartoon I use, and it's called The Progress of the Century. And it has a steam locomotive going through a tunnel in a motif, and there's this huge cloud of coal dust coming out. And a number of students will write about, oh, they're concerned about the pollution. And I have a check and I said, no, it's called The Progress of the Century. Like, no one is caring. It's not a concern. But when we get to the progressive era, John Muir, the Sierra Club, all of that, that's where we really start to see a lot, we turn a lot to start concerned about the environment.
So one of the things I do want to add to that is Eastern Civs is, and McGowan and I will joke about this, not the best named class. They do also actually talk, there is a section about South American and Central American cultures. So it's included there. It is an elective class, but that has been kind of addressed as a need because I know when Colin McGowan was writing that class, he was he took it to mean that he needed to take into account the cultures that we don't always normally talk about. And then when it comes to environmental stuff in AP Gov, it comes up a lot when we're talking about the bureaucracy. I know my kids are going to groan when they find out tomorrow what we're doing, but we are starting the bureaucracy. And so I spend a lot of time talking about like the EPA. We talk about the Clean Air and Water Acts and try to cover those. So it's not necessarily as in depth as what you're mentioning, but we try to mention it when we can. And I don't know, we've never really had any conversations about an environmental history class, but yeah.
Can I get a real quick one? Or are we done?
Excuse me, I have to get to service learning.
Thank you for going.
Yeah, so just when you think about education policy, there's really two ways of doing that, right? There's the bureaucratic top-down demand to everything, very focused and very demanding. The other is subsidiarity, right? The lowest level everywhere kind of works it out. As educators, I see a sense of which little frustration with the bureaucratic, but at least it's pretty pretty free to allow you to form ideas. Which would you rather? Would you rather have a very well-defined, hardened bureaucratic demands, or would you rather a subsidiarity kind of approach where you as educators have a lot of freedom in how you structure your curriculum?
That's such a hard question. Do you have an answer, or are we both still thinking? You got it? Because I also.
At least for me. The way it is, I guess, in a way I would prefer the way it is, because what we presented was Columbus gives us this, and we will always hit whatever Columbus tells us to do. Some of us in the environment will always say, like, we're good soldiers. They tell us to do it, okay, we'll do it. But we go beyond that, and we say, they're not the gurus of everything down in Columbus. And when we're smart enough to say, okay, this is missing, this needs to be added, our students are interested in this. And one of the great benefits that Hudson has, that I love Hudson, and I'm not just saying that as an employee for 24 years, there are other schools, I won't name them, that literally you can walk into their US history class and hear their teacher and hear what they're teaching, and then go down the hallway, turn another US history class to do the exact same thing, because they are in lockstep. Their administration is giving them, this is lockstep. You are to do the same lesson, same time period, every single day, and you hit a standardized test. I won't say what schools they do. I would never want to work for them. Hudson treats us as you're professionals. We trust you. You know what you're doing. You're going to hit the standards, and we trust you that you're going to add and collaborate on things that you find that the students need. I love the trust we're given.
I'm definitely going to echo that. I think for me, I would like to see some type of middle ground between those two, which I realize is like the kind of almost waffling answer. But I think the reason I go with that is I was looking at standards from 7th grade, which is something that I have not done in a while. And I noticed looking at the 7th grade standards that they were talking about how when the Roman Empire collapses, then we can start talking about how the Islamic empires are going to bring in all of this like education and medicine and all this stuff. And I'm like, it's not accurate. And so I think for me, I love the freedom that Hudson gives. Like the fact that I get to write a class as like a 4th year teacher is an insane, amount of trust. And I love the professionalism of Hudson and the freedom of Hudson. But I do wish that ODE would maybe spend a little bit more time revising their standards as information comes up. Like it's one of these things that I know Marty mentioned, it gets added as like in italics, and it's like this extra piece. I feel like I would prefer kind of like especially coming from a history teacher. I would like it to be revised a bit more, to be a bit more nuanced, I think is kind of where I'm at. But I do very much like I can't argue with the freedom of being able to like go above and beyond what the state has already offered.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
today.
you.
Let's stay after the
So you can pull the thing for me. Thank you so much. As a member of the community who had 3 kids go through the system, and now I have grandkids in the system, and I can sit down and talk to my middle schooler about the Revolutionary War, and she knows things and different conversations we have. You are greatly appreciated, greatly. And I don't know that you always get that feedback, but you are greatly appreciated. I neglected to mention that I do have that service learning for anybody who was signed up for last week, and because the school, the snow day, they're doing that today. So if you need to take a look at what time you were scheduled, I have this here for you. Thank you, Ben. Okay, we have a big payout of $7 today. And Brittany, if you would choose, please.
Okay. Wait, what? 924816.
There we go. There you are. Thank you. Kelly's the big winner today. All right, let's see if it's your lucky day. You ready? No, not really. There was a winner a couple weeks ago, though. Yeah. Okay, no winner today. So we will keep the increase of the dollars here. All right. So everybody, don't forget, if you're signed up to go help with service learning, and get out there and make it a great day.